You ever see a grown man shove a teenage girl down the stairs and still walk away like he's doing the world a favor? That's what happened to Nova James. 16 years old, new kid in town. And apparently in the eyes of some folks at Eastbridge High, being a quiet black girl with a military past was enough to make her dangerous. Or invisible. Or both. Nova wasn't looking for trouble when she transferred in. She just wanted to get through junior year without drawing too much attention. She ate her lunch alone, kept her answers short in class, and never broke the unspoken rule, don't make them uncomfortable. But you can be silent and still make people squirm just by existing in a place they think you don't belong. The whispers started the first week. Then the stares, then the jokes. One guy called her private property and laughed like he just cured cancer. Another mimicked her voice low and calm, mocking the way she never reacted. But the worst of it didn't come from kids. It came from someone in uniform, Officer Kenneth Blake, school resource officer. 50-something white, built like he still bench-pressed his ego. From day one, he watched Nova like she was a lit fuse, like quiet meant calculating, like posture meant attitude. And one Thursday afternoon, as the bell rang and the stairwell clogged with students, it happened. Nova brushed past him, didn't touch, didn't speak, and he muttered, "Watch it." Then, as if gravity had taken a personal offense, he shoved her, hard, right down the concrete stairs, in front of everyone. Phones were out before she hit the third step. Blood from her eyebrow traced a line down her cheek. The crowd gasped, but no one moved, except Nova. She stood. She wiped the blood with the back of her hand, looked Officer Blake in the eye, and said nothing. Just stared, still silent, deadly calm. Because here's what Blake didn't know. Nova wasn't just a teenager. She wasn't just some transfer from nowhere. Nova James had spent the last 4 summers being trained by her aunt, Lieutenant Major Raina James. 23 years in the Army, 2 tours, and a reputation for turning steel into discipline. Nova didn't talk much about it. But every bruise, every sprint, every dawn that started with a whistle and ended in gravel had built something in her. Her hands knew how to disarm. Her knees knew how to anchor. Her voice, when she used it, could cut through a man like a blade through fog. But for now, she stayed quiet. The video blew up that night. Cop pushes teen girl for no reason. 30 seconds long, shaky, grainy, but clear enough to show the shove. And the fall. And the silence. By sunrise, the hashtag #HadJusticeForNova was trending across 3 states. News vans parked outside the school, parents pulled their kids out, and the Eastbridge Police Department. They issued a 2-line statement: "We are aware of an incident. Officer Blake remains on duty pending review." That's it. You know who did show up the next day. Not the mayor, not the superintendent, not even Blake. It was Nova's aunt. Lieutenant Major Raina James walked into the school office in full uniform badges, polished boots echoing off the linoleum like gunshots. She requested the security footage. They said it was under internal review. She smiled, leaned in, and said, "If I don't have it by 3 p.m., I'll come back with a subpoena." They had it to her by lunch. And that's when people started remembering who Nova was. The quiet girl who'd once crawled under barbed wire in the Georgia summer sun, who could break down a Glock blindfolded, who never flinched, never snapped, never cried, not because she didn't feel, but because she'd been trained to hold the line. But Eastbridge didn't want a line. They wanted silence. So when local reporters asked the principal for a statement, she said the footage was inconclusive. When Nova's mother demanded action, she got a letter home about escalating tensions. When students wore black in solidarity, they were told it violated dress code. That's when everything cracked. Enter Darnell Hughes, a junior with a stutter and a fire in his chest. He released a TikTok compilation footage of Nova's fall, quotes from classmates, screenshots of racist texts students had sent in group chats. It went viral in under an hour. Then came the alumni, then the local activist group, then the podcast episode titled "Small Town." Big silence. The police chief. He made an appearance red-eyed, clenched-jawed at a press conference 3 days later. He called the incident regrettable but said there was no evidence of racial motivation. Standing behind him, Officer Blake, arms folded, stone-faced. But this time, the community didn't swallow it. The city council chambers overflowed with parents and students. An 11-year-old read a letter aloud about how she was afraid to go to school. A local veteran, white-bearded MAGA sticker on his truck, stood up and said, "That girl stood like a soldier. Your officer shoved her like a coward." And when the mayor up for re-election tried to pivot to healing and moving forward, someone shouted, "We can't heal over a bruise that's still bleeding." Meanwhile, Nova said nothing. She trained. She ran before sunrise, sparred in the evenings, practiced control. Her aunt's words always in her head. Discipline is choosing what matters most over what feels good now. And Nova, she wasn't going to throw fists just to feel powerful. She was going to wait. And when the moment came, she'd show them what power really looked like. She didn't have to wait long, and when the moment came, it didn't explode in fists. It snapped in silence. 2 weeks after the fall, Eastbridge High held a mandatory assembly, something about restoring trust. But let's be real, it was damage control. The gym was packed humid with tension. Teachers lined the walls like prison guards. Students slouched low in their seats, eyes on Nova, sitting dead center in the front row, back straight, braid tight, unreadable. And then came the announcement. Officer Blake would be addressing the student body. Now picture this, the man who shoved a girl down a flight of stairs, walking into a room where half the crowd already wanted him gone, the other half unsure if he even deserved a voice, and standing there like he owned the place. He took the mic, cleared his throat, and for the first time, his hands trembled. "I didn't intend for anyone to get hurt," he began, voice flat, eyes darting over the crowd. It was a misunderstanding, a safety concern. And in the front row, Nova tilted her head, not angry, not even smirking, just listening, like a soldier assessing a threat. That silence. It cracked him. You could see it, his chest tightening, the sweat pooling at his collar. He was used to being the authority in the room, the final say. But here his words hit a wall of disbelief. Kids whispering, teachers averting their eyes. The gym charged with the quiet rage of every kid who'd been followed in a store, randomly selected at the airport, told to calm down while bleeding. He kept going anyway. "I was doing my job," Blake insisted. "And maybe she took it wrong. But I've served this community for 20 years. I don't need to be painted as some kind of..." And that's when Nova stood. Didn't say a word. Just walked up the aisle slow and steady until she reached the stage. She didn't grab the mic. She didn't need to. She just looked at him, face to face. Now here's the thing they don't teach you in law enforcement training. You can't arrest dignity. You can't shove silence into submission. And when a girl who's been taught to survive stands with her whole being and refuses to be broken, you start to see yourself for what you really are. And Blake, he saw it. He saw a girl he tried to reduce to a headline standing before him unafraid. He saw the cameras flash again, but now they were focused on her. He saw students who once laughed at his jokes now crossing their arms. He saw administrators gripping their clipboards, unsure of what to do. He didn't crumble. Not yet. But something cracked in his eyes, just a flicker of regret smothered instantly by pride. "I didn't push her because of her race," he spat suddenly, as if daring someone to challenge it. "She was disrespectful. She walked past me like I didn't exist." There it was, the real reason. Not fear, not protocol, ego. He didn't hate Nova for being black. He hated her for not being afraid. The room froze. And Nova, she finally spoke. "I'm not here to prove anything to you," she said softly, but every word landed like a nail through wood. "I didn't flinch when you pushed me. I won't flinch now. Because this," she gestured at the crowd, "this isn't about you anymore." Then she turned to the students. "All of us who've been told we don't belong, who've been mocked, followed, shoved, silenced, we're not waiting for apologies. We're building something better." And she stepped down. The gym erupted, not in applause, not yet, but in something deeper. Some kids cried, some hugged, some stood stunned like they'd finally been seen. And Blake. He stood alone on that stage. The man with the badge, completely powerless. He left the school that day under administrative reassignment. Later that week, the police chief resigned, citing community tensions. By month's end, Eastbridge passed a district-wide anti-bias and de-escalation training mandate. Nova's aunt appointed as a civilian advisor. The local news called it a reckoning, but for Nova, it was just the beginning. She launched a student-led program, Project Backbone, teaching mental resilience, self-defense, and conflict resolution. Kids lined up, even former bullies asked to join. The most unexpected moment came weeks later when Blake's own daughter Tessa approached Nova after a forum. "My dad, he was never like that at home," she said, eyes wide, voice trembling. "I don't know what happened to him." Nova didn't offer pity, but she nodded. Sometimes people don't break until they meet something they can't control. And for Officer Blake, that something was a teenage girl trained by the military and shaped by silence. But this story, it didn't end with his fall. Because months later, Nova stood at a city summit, this time as the keynote speaker. She wasn't a hashtag anymore. She was a movement. And as she looked out over the crowd, parents, students, officials, officers in uniform, she told the truth, unflinching. We're not asking for special treatment. We're demanding safety, respect, and the right to walk through a school without being watched like criminals. And to anyone who thinks this isn't their problem, ask yourself, what will you do when silence becomes violence? And that gym packed with people from every corner of the city rose to their feet. One girl, one voice, one shove that echoed across an entire town. Nova didn't smile much that day. But when a freshman handed her a note after the event that read, "I used to hide who I was. Now I want to stand," she finally did. So now I'll ask you, do you think justice was served? Was Blake a monster? Or just a man too weak to face a mirror? Was Nova a hero? Or simply someone who refused to disappear? Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand your ground when the world wants you to shrink.